Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to uncover the incredible, totally invisible underground worlds engineered to power America's grandest estates and bustling cities. We're going to literally look beneath the surface to figure out exactly why high society and business tycoons went to such extreme lengths to hide their most crucial daily operations right under everyone's feet.
So think about this for a second. What if this city you walk through every single day is really only half the story? I want you to imagine that just beneath the opulent surface of the world you see, there's a parallel, hidden layer existing just out of sight. It's a layer built with absolute precision engineering, but it was designed specifically not to be admired. It was designed to completely disappear.
You see, the Gilded Age was completely defined by this wild sensory extreme. Up above, the visible world was all about effortless luxury, perfumed air, and these bright sweeping spaces. But down below, the invisible world was a totally different reality. We're talking claustrophobic, grueling labor, and a heavy, damp atmosphere just thick with coal dust and sea salt. For the new money elite of the time, true luxury was basically a magic trick. The chandeliers had to seem self-lighting, the dining tables self-setting. And to pull off that level of magic, well, you have to completely hide the magician's hands.
And this wasn't just, slopping in some basement stairs. This was the architecture of invisibility. Between 1870 and 1910, massive estates like Newport's The Breakers were designed with a super strict mandate. Servants must remain entirely unseen by guests. No exceptions. We're talking about systematic, purpose-designed underground infrastructure networks engineered for one very specific, tactical reason: to completely mask domestic labor from the wealthy owners and whoever they had visiting.
The sheer scale of this hidden workforce is just staggering. 80. During the peak summer season, up to 80 resident staff operated in these subterranean layers at these massive properties. Cooks, footmen, mechanical engineers, literally an entire invisible army living and breathing between the walls and beneath the floors. They had to navigate these silent routes, and this was strictly enforced by the threat of instant dismissal if they were ever spotted by a guest.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how they engineered perfect silence to maintain that illusion. I mean, they calculated the exact physics needed so workers wouldn't be heard grunting or straining. They used gravity-assisted coal carts running on precisely 15-degree inclined rails, so gravity did all the heavy lifting for them. They slathered tallow grease all over the iron tracks to eliminate any chance of a metallic squeal. They even went as far as replacing traditional clunky bell pulls with silent pneumatic tube networks routed through the walls. Absolutely everything was meticulously mapped and scheduled to move perfectly out of sight.
And they didn't stop there. They even engineered the ceilings for silence. By packing dense earth backfill right between the subterranean brick acoustic vaulting and the wooden floors of the guest rooms above, engineers managed to achieve roughly 20 decibels of sound dampening. Because think about it, if a guest heard the rumble of a cart below, the spell was completely broken. So they quite literally buried the noise.
But hey, it wasn't just sound they were managing. They actually managed the climate too. Decades before mechanical refrigeration was even a thing, they relied on this remarkably intricate passive system. It started in the dead of winter, harvesting up to 40 tons of river ice, which is a massive amount, and heavily insulating it in packed sawdust. That ice was then hauled down and stored in these deep bedrock vaults beneath the service wings. Then, as the summer heat rolled in, a really sophisticated network of lead-lined drainage channels and dedicated dumbwaiters distributed the ice and its chill throughout the massive house. And they did all of this without spilling a single drop of meltwater on a carpeted guest corridor.
Okay, let's zoom out to the macro level and see how this all builds. This whole concept of a double city, a visible world for guests and an invisible one for operations, it actually didn't stay confined to private mansions. It scaled up to the metropolis. It became the literal design template for major urban environments as American cities just began to explode in size and complexity.
To really give you an idea of how big this got, 60 miles. That is the jaw-dropping scale of the narrow-gauge freight railway built directly under downtown Chicago by the Chicago Tunnel Company. We are talking about an entire, massive railway system operating totally out of sight right beneath the bustling city streets.
This brilliantly illustrates how entire cities started handling their heavy logistics completely out of sight. This massive network was actually excavated covertly starting in 1899. Get this, workers were hauling dirt out of a saloon basement after midnight just to avoid the city's attention. Operating on a tiny 2-foot track gauge, this system was incredibly efficient. It could deliver 3.5 tons of coal directly into a skyscraper's underground boiler room in literally 2 seconds. It hauled away excavation debris, delivered mail, and moved millions of pounds of freight without anyone above ground having a clue it was happening.
And here is a really surprising fact about all that. Because it was so deep underground, the tunnel air hovered at a constant 55 degrees year-round. Well, the tunnel company quickly realized they had a highly lucrative secondary business on their hands. Long before modern air conditioning was a reality, they piped and sold this naturally cool 55-degree tunnel air to surface-level theaters to keep audiences perfectly comfortable in the sweltering summer heat. Talk about a brilliant side hustle.
Now let's shift focus to the West Coast, where underground infrastructure wasn't exactly born out of luxury, it was born out of pure disaster. In 1889, an overturned glue pot in a carpentry shop accidentally sparked the Great Seattle Fire, which completely devastated the city. This catastrophe, combined with the fact that they were constantly dealing with flooding from high tides, forced Seattle to just completely rethink its relationship with the ground it was built on.
And their solution was honestly kind of wild. They simply raised the city. Seattle completely regraded its streets, building concrete walls and washing earth in to raise the road levels by generally 12 feet, and in some crazy places, up to 30 feet high. Now, this successfully combated the flooding and sewer backups, sure, but it also created a massive, awkward gap between the new streets and the original lower building entrances.
So to bridge that massive gap, they engineered vault lights. Instead of leaving open, super hazardous grates above these newly submerged sidewalks, they installed these walk-on skylights featuring small panes of clear or amethyst-colored glass embedded right into the pavement. It's a truly ingenious architectural feature that sealed the hollow sidewalks while allowing natural daylight to filter down to the businesses still operating below. It was brilliant, profit-driven daylighting, ensuring those underground shops could still survive beneath the newly elevated street level.
The next time you walk down a city street, you might want to think about the solid ground beneath your feet. A storefront sidewalk that looks like normal, solid ground might actually be a massive, deep drop, hiding just below the concrete. It might be a hollow vault left over from these 19th century street raisings, just quietly supporting your weight every single time you step on it. Pretty wild to think about, right?
So what does this all mean for us today? What's the modern legacy of these hollow sidewalks? Well, created as airways during those massive street-level raisings, they were originally incredibly useful for coal storage and hiding utility connections. But today, they present a massive headache. Cities like Milwaukee still grapple with these hidden vaults because they require incredibly expensive, specialized maintenance just to keep pedestrians safe as they walk above spaces that were originally designed over a century ago.
When a city like Milwaukee has to fix a hollow sidewalk today, they can't just slap some pavement over it and call it a day. It's a whole ordeal. They have to carefully rebuild walls at the property line, force owners to reroute their private utilities, fill the vault with compacted granular material, and then meticulously apply this thick waterproofing to the new vault roof before they can even think about pouring the new concrete. It is a massive, completely hidden civil engineering project happening right under our feet.
Which brings us to a final, pretty provocative question I want to leave you with today. What invisible systems are you relying on right now without even knowing it? From the Gilded Age servants moving perfectly silently behind the walls, to subterranean coal trains zipping around Chicago, to the hollow sidewalks beneath your own morning commute, our modern lives are totally dependent on hidden labor, buried logistics, and invisible infrastructure. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, always keep looking beneath the surface.